All right, big hey now out there to everybody. Let's see. What do we got? Somebody post in the chat. You can hear me. Every once in a while we have technical difficulties. All right. Well, I see no comments. I see a black screen on my end. I may have to restart this. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. May have to restart this. I'm going to try one thing here. All right. There we go. I think everybody's seeing an image now. I think I can actually change it. There we go. All right, my friends. Good to see everybody here. Pretty interesting. Fisk, good to see you, FM based. Thank you for answering. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just going to go over the state of the bond market today and just kind of show what's been going on. So people have been paying attention to the content. And I know this because I can see people making moves with the Actuator protocol out there. Though I don't know if you guys noticed, the Explorer has been really tough to use the last couple of days. APIs have been tough to use, interfering with gathering data. I discovered Actuator as it was launching back in 2024, but I didn't really get deep into it, understanding it until maybe March, April of 2025. And then since then, I've been doing a lot of different content, just going over the bond market and what's exciting about the bond market for me. Because I feel like it opens the door to a lot more use cases in HEX, and so did a number of different things, comparing these HTTs, which are future HEX. Basically, they're bonds, and where if you are to swap for an HTT at a discount, you can set up a fixed return, and that gives you the ability to calculate both ROI and APR. What's interesting about that is there are people that have different goals, right? And some want HEX at different time frames, and based on when they want to get their HEX, they'll pick different HTTs to be involved in. And there's a lot more strategies or a lot more things you could be doing than just simply swapping for HTTs. But they have that out there. In comparison, we have the meme token of Helgo that's attached to HEX, which is a fun little meme token that's part of the overall HEX landscape. And then often people ask about Hedron and how that is like an HTT, because Hedron is a reward token, but also has a whole loaning application behind it, right? Where you can actually borrow against stakes to get Hedron, and etc. And then of course Maxi and Deci. And so from that, we're able to calculate out, what those returns could be in the future as well. But just giving a little tour of some of the topics that we've gone over in the past here. One of the things this is just my opinion, I know that this is how I feel about native staking. I feel native staking of HEX is the strongest commitment you could possibly make to HEX ecosystem, right? That's how I feel about it. However, that may not fit with everyone, and some people may want to be able to do things with their HEX stakes rather than just wait to the last end day. No, you didn't invent HSIs, and I didn't invent HSIs, but they exist, and it allows people to tokenize the HSIs and use them as collateral, whether it's in the Hedron ecosystem or the Actuator ecosystem. Who knows? There might be something else that comes along later, right? I mean, anything like that can happen, right? And so my journey through this whole HEX ecosystem is I do believe in the product market fit of HEX staking. But I also recognize that when I'm talking to someone about how staking HEX for 15 years is a great idea, that not everybody feels like staking HEX for an unknown future APR, but roughly around 5% overall for the entire stake is like a fantastic idea. And certainly crypto people aren't like, oh, this is great. This is great. Why? Because most people coming into crypto are looking to get their 100x, their 1000x, and they want it tomorrow. They're not talking about 15 years from now. So that makes it kind of difficult to get people to say, hey, let's go participate in HEX. Actuator changes all that, right? And the reason I feel that way is because I definitely feel like when we look at HEX and the diminishing amount of HEX that's out there, it's not quite deflationary at this time based on the information from Ben Sierra, but T-shares are. It's harder and harder to make the T-shares because the T-share rate is going up. And so as those T-shares disappear, we end up in a situation where people who are mining get kind of this leveraged opportunity of some future fantastic gains in terms of HEX. And then if you add in price appreciation to that, that really goes off. Really, really, really creates a situation where you could really see some huge gains. I've actually been thinking for myself, maybe what I'll do from now on is just project out all-time highs, right? We're going to all-time high, 55 cents. And in that way, maybe perhaps people will feel as they're listening to that, hey, listen, at 55 cents, 100,000 HEX is a big deal. So, I mean, right now it doesn't feel like a big deal, $10, right? But you have that. Now, some people have talked about using HEX, and if you think of it going forward, using HEX in the Actuator ecosystem as a HELOC, because you can, I'll show you this as we look at some of the charts, but current state, even like with a HTT 7000, you can actually set up a stake going out to day 7,000 and recover 50% of the value at any time. And on top of that, as the stake earns additional HEX, it can also be minted. And so it changes the dynamics and what's available to someone. Now again, I nod to all of us native stakers. I mean, we did a lot of native staking. But as we see with the numbers week over week, we're not seeing the growth that I would like to see, for sure. We're not seeing the growth of the staking community. In fact, a lot of people who are here, they might not even be staking at all. They just listen, And I see the Actuator ecosystem as an opportunity to really drive a lot more HEX adoption and lock up a ton more HEX. I've gone through some of these explanations with Johnny Chaos. We did that good video a few weeks back. And then, I've gone through these amplifications where, when HTTs are expensive, you can show mathematically that you can get more T-shares and lock up more HEX and be able to earn more of an APR and ROI over time. So just going through all these bond market type things. The 7,000s were really good for amplification for a while. That's somebody amplified in this week and brought that value more in line. The 6,000s also have been amplified this week, though there's still a little bit of a premium on that, and it's all a matter of perspective, as to what you think is correct, right? What you think the price will do. And like somebody really smart said to me one time this last week, well, at $5, does it really matter? Does it really matter what price you're paying, whether it's 10% cheaper or 20% cheaper than expected, right? So I do encourage you guys to go take a look at some of these past streams and look at that. Look at what I've been putting out on this. I think the math is good. Now as we go, let me go check on you guys in the chat here, see what we got going on. Do you think HEX is going to go to 10 cents this bull market? And I'm talking about the one on Ethereum. Yeah, no way of knowing, David. I mean, sure. Could it? Yeah. Let's use 55 cents. This way, if it only gets 20% of the way there, we got it, right? Sway. Ooh, there you are. Manitoc is saying still bullish on PHEX. We use the second wall to amplify through Actuator, so we're looking forward to buy some discounted HTTs. Yeah. This is this is crypto, right? This is crypto, so we don't know what's going to happen, Mr. Click Buttons. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, and but we had this purge. This was a purge. We could do a whole movie on that, right? What a purge. We don't know what's going to happen as we move into the future, but I'd expect the network to grow. I expect prices to be volatile, all that type of stuff. Why not? It is crypto, right? Okay, so let's go take a little bit of information. So for some of you who haven't necessarily gotten into the detail of Actuator, I'm going to bring you over there and look at some stuff. All right. So first off, just want to point out the current situation as I'm seeing it. I have on the screen a price panel for what I'm showing for HTTs, and we do have quite a few HTTs out there now, and everywhere from the 8,000 down to 3690. All right. So we have quite a few. I must not have a trade on 8,000, so it dropped off a DEX screener. So I don't see it here. Let me just do a quick refresh, bring that up, see if it comes up on this latest update. This panel updates about every 10 minutes. So because I'm using DEX screener for a lot of this, they do fall off. But we got the 7,900 is the highest one out there that you can actually stake for the specific date. 8,000 is a little special case. They're coming up new. The Quattro Siete, Cinco, yeah. The Quattro 7,000s, Quattro 6s, 6,000s, Quattro 5s, 4,000s, 3690, 3,000s, and they all have different values for their liquidity. The main HTTs out there, which are pretty important, are the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7. Those act as major nodes on the yield curve, and with the greatest grouping of liquidity, 84,000 on the HTT 7,000. You can see that HEX is up in the last 24 hours of measurement is about 0.94, and all of the HTTs do different things based on what users are doing. And so some of them are really close to 0.94. Looks like we got 3,000, a little bit less people have been coming out of that, and that's an exit route. Because you get almost 0.85 HEX per HTT 3000 on the market. And so people who have HSIs and want to get out of their stakes for whatever reason and use that value, they can get 85% of the value. Liquidity is not super thin, but it's about 27K in this pair. There are many other pairs also out on the the DEXs and PHEX and etc. So there are other pairs. This is just the primary pair that's there, and so it's easy to do a $500 type of a swap with minimal impact, right? And then of course the greatest is the 7,000 at $1,600, which is a pretty nice tranche. I mean, that's over 1,000,000 hex in one swap that pool can handle. And of course, with the price of hex going up, all of these values went up because they're priced in hex. They go up, and the lower liquidity pairs that are out there, like the Quattro 7, that was community driven. 7,900 was community driven. 6666 was community driven, trying to prove out how the system can work as we go forward. And the rationale behind it is somebody went and printed HTT 777s. If anybody else comes in and mints more, it pays out fees into the vaults of 777s. Meanwhile, whoever puts up the LP, the HTT 777 should go up in value in hex in a rational market until day 7777, where it would be 1-to-1. That would be rational, right? But sometimes, whether through just mechanics or just how the market decides to do things, they get discounted, right? And so we have a really interesting seesaw effect with the HTTs in that when they're cheaper than staking, right? Remember, somebody had to create, like the HTT 3000 is a good example. For these HTT 3000s to exist, somebody had to actually take hex and put it up as collateral 1-to-1 for each 3000. And this is why we know that they'll be worth 1-to-1 with hex on day 3000, which is only about a year and a half out. But it's discounted 15%. And so you can calculate and say, well, so if I swap into a 3000, I am going to get a 15% in ROI on that. And if it's in LP against hex, you basically get trading fees plus that growth, and then is exposed to whatever happens with the hex price. If hex price doubles, the HTT price will nearly double. You'll probably lag a little bit behind, but again, it depends on the actions of the peeps, right? Because people do what they're going to do. All right, so one good landing place. I put this link into the video as well. Is if you have questions about this protocol, I do urge you, if you're interested in hex staking, which is probably how you end up seeing this, I at least urge you to go familiarize yourself with the protocol. It's not a plea, not a beg, because it's getting information out there about hex and what we can do with it. When I was looking at these charts, let me cover this one thing before we go deeper. Looking at these major nodes, right? There are some of these that are discounted, like I said, with the 3000s. And even though, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, some of these are overpriced, some of them aren't. What you're still able to do is get exposure to hex stakes, essentially hex on all these different time frames into the future, just simply by swapping for them. So I have been talking with Liberty Swap and submitted over the information for the major nodes to get 3000s, 4000s, 5000s, 6000s, 7000s listed. Now, why would I want those to be listed on Liberty Swap? Well, because in Liberty Swap, for a lot of users, it's literally a 5-minute, 2-transaction move from Ethereum USDC to a token that you want on the Pulsechain. And you don't even, and the way they've set this up, as long as this option's still there, you could do a gasless. And so what does this mean to me? It means to me that I could be sitting around the table at Thanksgiving and talking to somebody about HEX, and I can say to them, "Oh, are you interested?" Yeah. A lot of people have Coinbase now or whatever. They could just go get some USDC, go over to Liberty Swap on the same wallet and do a gasless transaction and buy HEX. They could also do a gasless transaction and get right into PulseX. Pulse, do a gasless transaction, get into any of the HTTs. And so I find that interesting for those of us who are going to be really into this HTT stuff. Just the ease of being able to take that position, right? And, of course, everybody's going to make their own decisions about what they're going to do and why they're going to do it, what the strategy is, and does it make sense to do it. But a couple of days ago, I can get 1 million HEX for $1,000, right? And I don't think we can get 1 million HEX for $1,000 today. So that, things can change, and they do change. So with all of that, I see this as being an opportunity for people to onboard if they choose to, and to do it quickly. So these FAQs are pretty good. They'll explain some different things. There's a lot of documentation in the documents pages within the Actuator site, but it just kind of goes through and has some of the top questions, about what an HTT is, what a redemption day is, how do you determine what you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. And so for you big oils out there who are doing this, you can come in and actually create your own HTT that you own 100% of at the beginning, right? Because you backed it. You can set your own ratio to HEX. You can set your own LP. You can set the vault, so you're the only one who earns off of that vault. And it is an extension of it's an extension of the ecosystem, the HEX ecosystem. And so you can actually take dormant HEX and go put it to work doing something. Now, there's some argument you could make. You could do other pairs. You could be doing other things, but with it as well. Of course, there's many things you could be doing with these tokens that are out there. But here's the thing: is somebody else wants to play with you within the HEX and Actuator Finance system, they can go mint more of those HTTs, just like you did. And they can earn off of the vault, and they could choose yours. So what I really think we're going to see is that for whatever reason, people will create HTTs, and if people rally around those numbers, you'll see liquidity grow, and then it just provides more opportunity for the yield curve for people to pick different dates into the future with different amounts of HEX. And it creates all sorts of interesting curves and whatnot, that you could be doing. Like for instance, Johnny and I were talking. I'm name dropping, but we were talking about how the other day 4,000s. You mentioned to me the 4,000s were overpriced as compared to 3,000s. I call that the time travel trade. So when they're exactly the same price, you can actually stake for 4,000 days and get all your HEX on day 3,000 instead by swapping them out into day 3,000. So literally staking out long, supporting the system, but because of the pricing, being able to move up the time frame, time travel kind of a trade. So you could see people just simply going through over the long period of time and just swapping back and forth between these, doing the ratio trading that they want to do. Now, the major nodes are the important ones right now because they can handle load, right? Reasonable load. Right? 7,000s over 1,000, 6,000s over 1,000, 5,000, almost 1,000, etc. So you could be doing and moving with those. But I think what's important isn't so much today what the prices are, but when the HEX is up a 2x from now, 10x from now, 100x from now, all these numbers go with it, and all of a sudden you have an environment where people in many different areas of the world can reasonably make a living doing this if they chose to, if they're good at it. But it also opens up the risk, right? Because people do a lot of trading. I always screw up, right? So you do need to do that. Yeah, Minotaur, if you get a chance, look at those previous ones. If people haven't seen them, it's pretty cool. Fisk, this good question. Does it make sense to invest in the Actuator token, any utility? Yes and yes. Yes and yes. However, here's the thing, right? So how did the Actuator protocol attract this much liquidity for these different HTTs? Well, when you set up LP with HEX, with these HTTs that are that are incentivized, you drop them into the pool, and some of them you can farm. So let's go look at the farms real quick. All right, so the 3,000 through the 7,000 you can farm, and right now they're paying. They paid all sorts of amounts. Sometimes they're over 100%, sometimes they're 300%. It depends on what people are doing. All right, so these are the APRs for farming: 47%, 58%, 56%. So what other way is it? There's very few other ways that you can earn 40% APR on your HEX stakes, right? And so these are formidable and they're good numbers, but they pay out an actuator token. That's how their farms are paid. And then you say, okay, well, what do you do with the actuator token? Well, if you want to consider it a reward, what you can do is swap the actuator out for HEX or whatever. Here's the chart for actuator. We got a lot of lines on this thing, which is showing its action over time. This is in USD. I can go over to Pulse and go look at the Pulse and see what that is. Right, so it's actually gone up pretty good. We recovered from the launch up to pretty good to almost 80. I guess it was 85-ish, right around there. Pulse per actuator, but now it's down to about 50. So what does this represent? This represents people who put LP up that are getting the actuator and are selling it into the market, right? Sometime in the past they got actuator, and they're selling it into the markets. Price and Pulse has come down, right? So I consider this a high risk reward play, right? Actuator itself. So the LP-ing, providing the farms, I don't consider this to be high risk because I know I'm going to get paid out. And the actuator usually gets paid in actuator, they can sell it. There is a market. Liquidity is pretty thin, but it seems to be handling it okay. All right. So what's the second use case, right? All right. Well, it's considered to be a revenue token, not a reward token. It's deflationary in that once it's been completely distributed, which it will be completely distributed over the next year in 3 or 4 months. And I think it ends in 2027, October 2027, the distribution ends. And so right now it's being distributed through the farms, but the farms stop paying actuator in October 27. All right, so what's the risk? All right, so I'll get to that. So what you can also do is you put the actuator into one of the vaults for an HTT that you like, you're interested in, and then you earn a portion of the fees from people minting. So for instance, HTT 7000, people really like long-term HTTs. I've seen that. Has the most actuator. 12% of the final supply is actually in the HTT 7000, which means that people committed a lot of actuator in there. It gets locked up for a minimum 90 days without with penalty if you pull it between day 0 and 90. But after 90, you can move it around to whatever you want with it. You can add to it at any time, but people will deposit the actuator to earn the 7000s. And so they get free HTTs, which of course is HEX in the future, so you get that. Now, the risk reward is this. If you've earned the actuator token and you deposit it into these vaults, and for some reason there is not minting going on, like people are not adopting the system and they're not minting HTTs, well, then you don't earn off of it. And if people aren't earning, HEX, future HEX off of it, they're more likely to go sell it on the market, which means that this price would not stand. It'll come back down, right? So that's the risk. That's the risk. Now the other side of that, the reward is that what if my theory is correct and this market becomes a much bigger market and it is more actively used and there are additional HTTs that people launch over time. Like for instance, the HTT 8000 is out already. In August is the actual Quattro Cinco date to day 8000. The farm will come online for the HTT 8000s in October, and the HTT 3000 will fall off the farm, right? And so then people have an instant opportunity to be farming HTT 8000 in HEX. So probably start at 500, 600% APR, and that will drive people to go deposit, right? So then eventually the farm stops distributing, because then all 1 billion tokens are out. And once all 1 billion tokens have been distributed, Actuator actually flips deflationary. And that is because if you come in here to do a deposit, I don't know if it'll let me do it because I don't have any in this wallet, but yeah, it won't let me even show it. But it'll come up with saying, hey, listen, you have to lock for 90 days. There's a minimum deposit period of 90 days. Withdrawals made before the 90-day period will incur a penalty proportional to the remaining time. So anytime somebody removes early, they burn some of their actuator, right? So the risk is of holding actuator rather than selling it is that there's no future use of or limited future use of the actuator protocol, and not many HTTs are minted, and therefore you don't earn off of it. That would be the risk. The reward is, well, what if it's the complete opposite and people mint a shat ton of them? Then you can earn on those. And we're going to see this play out in October, because in the farms that we're looking at over here, in the farms here, we'll see the HTT 8000 appear in October, and we'll see what the reward is going to be, right? Now, here's the thing, right? In order to set the pair, you need the token. How do you get the token? You have to mint the token or buy it off the market, right? You buy it off the market, you send the price crazy high, and then somebody figures that out and they'll go mint the token and sell into it. So the net result of the farms being set up will be that people will mint HTT 8000s. And so, okay, so that's good. That's a good target. We know that people are going to do that, right? They're going to mint. And so if they're going to mint the 8000s, they're going to mint a lot of them. And so then the strategy would be to make sure that you put actuator in the 8000 vault to earn those HTT 8000s as they're minted. So a little deeper kind of a theory about how this all could work that maybe some are interested in. But yeah, I'm betting. I'm leaning 60-40 for sure. A little bit, probably more than 60-40. I'm leaning towards people are going to use this system. This is what I think. It's already been out here for a year and a half or so, and I think they're going to use it. And I think that I'm not saying everybody's going to use it, but I think it is a pretty awesome way to be able to get access to your liquidity and be able to do things with it. Even if it's just providing liquidity for the HEX ecosystem, So let's check comments here before I move on to the rest of the stuff. So yeah. Hey, listen, if it's not for you, like any reward, if you get a reward, you can swap it and go get more HEX and stake more HEX, amplify the stakes. Okay. How you doing, Tam? I see one HEX one. Thank you. Why do you say $5? Is it sister at that price, or you just mean just hit it? I don't know, but I don't know exactly what you mean. All-time high it is 55 cents. $5, easy just to say $5, right? So it's not a specific number that I'm like, oh, this is the number, right? But it's crypto. Anything can happen within crypto. I mean, how would I mean, we've seen it enough times, right? Yeah, we know the prices could never go up. It's possible, right? And I have some friends in crypto. They're not saying $5. They're saying $55. They're saying hundreds of dollars. Who knows, right? It could be. I think we do need much higher prices for basic staking to be like great, over the head over heels, right? For them. Fisk, yes, I'm a spider. How are you? And it's good to see you, my lady. All right, let's see here. Well explained. I'm sold. I believe it will get heavily adopted by HEX folks in the future. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to be the. Yeah, I think so too. I think there's legs here. Make HEX fun again. I think there are legs here with the actuator ecosystem. Particularly for crypto, I think it could be very attractive for crypto. And like always, right? We start talking about things like this. It's the people who, so the people doing the liquidity plays and putting liquidity up and, minting HTTs, they might not be the same people who are going to trade, right? They're the ones just setting the stage, for this, and these type of, what I'm seeing with this, just observationally, is we see persistent price differences, and then they shift, right? But it's a different kind of a market. It's a more solid of a market because these bonds. While we do talk about them being kind of like quote unquote like zero coupon bonds in TradFi, they're not backed by debt. They're backed by an asset, right? So it's kind of like a super bond. They're backed. It's one of the terms I've been kicking around, but they're backed by a asset. The asset is HEX. So yes, this whole ecosystem is dependent on what happens with HEX, right? It's not going to go off and see the value come from somewhere else, right? So yeah, I think there's lots of opportunity for that, and I do think, you know, just observationally, I've seen some of the numbers flip quite significantly. For instance, HTT 6000 at one point was overpriced, in my opinion, about 15%, and people took advantage of that and they amplified, and that amplification could be in creating new T-shares, which then acts like a leverage long on HEX, because now you have more T-shares, and as the payouts come out, you're earning on that. And I've done some videos. It's incredible to me, and I'm glad somebody went and did it, but it's incredible to me how few people have really taken advantage of the amplification process. The idea that you can get more T-shares, in the examples I've been using, usually about double the T-shares and locking up twice as much HEX, and why it's not being utilized more. Now, I'm thankful for it too, because the slow, I think grassroots slow coming to the idea of how this could work and utilize it, it's good. But it's really cool that somebody can be out here, little guy can be out here and, be amplifying 50,000 HEX at a time, locking up 100,000 by the time they're done, getting themselves 6 or 7 T-shares out in very long time frames. I think it's pretty cool that they can do that, because it gives them the exposure to HEX, and it's not like super expensive, right? To be able to do something with like 50,000 HEX. And remember at one point that traded for 25 grand. That 50,000. So if we go back to all-time high, that's a pretty formidable position when that happens. And at $5, forget about it, right? I mean, it's a really huge number. The super bond. That's like super bond. Oscar. All right, let's go take a look at a couple other things to show people. So we did look at the actuator. You can go on Deck Screener and see all the different HTTs listed up here, and what their action is, prices. Explorer has been really weird the last 24 hours. I don't know. Transactions have been really weird. Be able to get them through. Usually when that happens, somebody's doing something on chain, but I don't know exactly, but it seems like it's getting relieved. But when it does happen, you see a drop off in a lot of pairs not trading manually, and what you'll see is that whoever's doing whatever action, whether it's with a trope or something else, is really affecting the system. But this gives you can just come in and look at things like the HTTs and be able to get it. You can always come get the official contract addresses by going over to the Actuator site. And I'll just make a duplicate real quick of this. You always come over here to the Actuator site and go up to the More tab, tokens. It'll list all the tokens there. Because if people do make fake ones, right? They do. A bunch of jerks, but they do. So you can come up here and get them and go over to the actions, do a copy address, and copy the address right here. So you have the official token address. If your token address is not on the list, you can go pick one. You can type in a redemption day, like 8,000 won't show up yet, but getting lagged here on the screen. Sorry about that. But you can actually come in here and type in a redemption day and then get that specific one. I've seen somebody making some experiments out there where they're doing different tokens, in different time frames, 30-day time frames, that type of stuff. Kind of experimenting with the idea of doing rolling HTT liquidity, that type of thing. So we've seen that. But you can come here to that site and be able to get this information right on the site. So you can get your own CA. In terms of making an HTT, you can make one. Everybody can do one. You just simply come in here to do a new delegated stake, and you pick a new date or whatever that you want to do. You put in a certain amount of hex, you do 100,000. And you can select. Now, this is the preferred methodology, which I can get into if somebody wants to really talk strategy. Preferred methodology is rally around existing liquidity points, but that may not fit your time frame. You might want to do something different, right? So let's say you want to do something different. You can come in here and put your own day in and go create a new one. Like what's a fun number? At some point, I would expect somebody's going to do an 888. Right, and so we got to do the right thing here with this. So if I was going to do, what are we at today? We're at 2407, right? This is something that the devs will actually probably update, I'm going to guess. But we're at day 2407, right? And so if I make a stake today, it starts tomorrow, which is on 2408. And if I want that to go out Quattro Cinco, I just can add Quattro Cinco to that. So the next stake that's a Quattro Cinco stake is 7963. And that's what I'm going to put in here, 7963. I'm going to say I want to do 100,000 hex. Okay. So I can come in here, and they've made this change this last week per customer request. To get all the information here on the screen, so it works pretty fast. Brings in some good information. T-shirt rate's going up pretty good, 46,108 now. So we got a couple of changes that went through the last couple of days. But this is a 6.5 T-shirt stake for 5,555 days. All right, and so I could then stake that and create that stake, and then when I go to mint. I don't have a mint example on the screen to show you, but if I did, you would be able to select which kind of end day you want, right? So if you had something fancy that you want to do, who knows, maybe somebody wants to create a 4444 HTT and do liquidity, they could do it, right? So any of us can do that. It's just a matter of hitting that button and applying it. Now, thing is though, keep in mind, the reason I talking about rallying around an existing LP is because you got to put LP up for it, right? And a meaningful LP's got to be minimum $2,000, flat out, which means you're going to be making somewhat of an investment, right, into the LP. Now, bigger is better in that case, but availability of funds and all the rest, right? All right, so if we go through our list here, you can see a number of pools that are listed out here: 7,900, Quattrocinco, 3,000s, all of them listed here with the hex. They've got some Fux pools listed here, hex complex over there. There's a nice little actuator hex pair on 2Fux that's out there. I believe that this is that one, and I think it's incentivized at 20% or something right at the moment, APR. If somebody was interested in that, but they have that ability to do that. So they have all these different pools. Now, another thing, I've done some videos on just showing how to utilize their the actuator dashboard, and specifically the HEX Yield Curve. What you're able to do is come in here, and this is important for you guys to have different numbers than I'm using, right? You know, because mine are super conservative, right? So mine are really conservative, but you know, some people think these numbers are way too low. They wouldn't use them. So this is one of my conservative estimates, and what I was able to do is come out here and create a payout per t-shirt curve by just entering in what the payouts will be on each of these days, and then the system is able to chart that up for me and show me what I think the payouts might look like. Because this is the future, it's a guess. It's a guess, right? I mean, we're talking about out in this time frame, out in 2041, that we might see a very significant increase, doubling or more. You know, my high end number is like 70 hex per t-shirt on those, but this is why I say these are kind of conservative. So I can come in here and do a payout per t-shirt and put these numbers in. So you can put your own numbers in there, what you think you're doing with it, and then you can say, okay, well, show me what hex staking looks like with that. What's the hex staking look like? All right, so we'll do that. So gold is hex staking, and so it kind of it goes through and calculates to the best of its ability what it thinks the APR or the total return will be, you know, for each one of these HTTs that are out there. Right, and this is why it's called the yield curve, because you can kind of like see what the yields might be, right? And yeah, it might be people that are interested when the market misprices HTTs, moving from one HTT to another in order to get a higher APR. Right? But you can see what we think the staking might be like for ROI. APR is a little flatter, you know. We're doing a hex stake out to 3,000. The longer pays better, right? So you can do a comparison this way. You can also say, okay, well, how does staking compare to, I just go swap for the token? Boom, right? So if I go swap for the token, 3,000 and total return is about 17%. It's the one that's in blue. Pretty good return for a year and a half. But if I staked out to day 3,000, I just get 2.8%. And again, longer pays better, so you see it come up. But then you see things like this, where they're inverted, day 6,000. And that indicates that there's an opportunity for amplification. So let me turn on amplification, and now we'll see what that looks like. Now, this is all based on that little curve that I made. See how it made a sword? I like that. Kind of like a cool medieval sword, sort of. But you can see the hex day 6,000. I'll read it to you because it's small on the screen. I hovered over it. If I was to go swap for the token because it's a little expensive, estimated ROI is 45.1%. If I was to stake for day 6,000, estimated ROI is 49.4%, so about 4 and change more points up. If I was to not just stake once, but stake 5 times in a row, it increases the amplified staking up to 56.7%. So it's about a 7% more return on investment by doing the amplification while the prices last. So this is for 5. So I like to do is I like to take it down to just 2. Right. So let's go to 1. So what does 1 look look like? Oh, one looks like there's no added benefit, right? If I do 2 stakes, there's just a little bit of an edge on the second stake of about 3 points, 3 percentage points. So 6,000s right now are the only one, based on my numbers, that I would consider amplified. However, that doesn't mean that's right, because remember, these numbers could be much different. I'm just trying to pick a methodology that I'm able to use. And when I say it could be much different, well, if we take a look at, let's just mess around with our payout per t-shirts, right? Let's say I don't know how these might go up, but let's just say that let's go to days. We'll do this one. We're going to say that the payout's 5 on Quattro Cinco, so I'm just kind of roughly doubling it. Let's just say it's going to be 9 on day 6,000 because something happens. We'll keep it at right around the 9 level going out to day 3,000 or 7,000. Excuse me, 9 level, and then I think it's going to be 10. I'm making up numbers, guys. This is not scientific. This is just like show what the curve looks like. All right. So now I just created this whole different curve, and let me clean up the screen so you guys can see it a little bit better. I'm going to turn off my other little things, right? So now I got the payout per t-shirt curve. Now remember before how it was kind of like slow and increasing, then it went up at the end. Well, now this is saying it's going to go way up, right around 2030. This is kind of like in theory, right? Maybe a lot of stuff happens around 2030. So now it's going to go way up, right? Well, now that changes these other things we were looking at quite a bit. So now let's see what our chart looks like. Come on, let me take one of them off, I guess. There we go. Boop. All right, so that makes a big difference on what this curve might look like, right? And so now you can see, even with just doing one extra stake, some pretty significant differences where the red line now is inverted, or is above the blue and gold on every single one of them. Meaning every one of them, if you thought that's what was going to happen, every single one of them makes sense to amplify right now. Until the price came back down a little bit. And it would be, and just looking at the current market pricing, so it would be like, boom, amplify, 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 amplify. Now, a lot of people would want, go for the longest, biggest, best. So they might do that. So this is one of the ways you can utilize this to kind of give yourself an idea of when it makes sense to amplify or not amplify. General rule of thumb is, in my book, is that if it's expensive, like why is it so expensive? It's a good time to amplify. And then when you look at something like the HTT 3000s here, being 15% off on price, that's an instant realization. If you're willing to hold the day 3000, right? It's an instant fixed return, 3,000 plus price appreciation to day 3,000. So you have that opportunity just by swapping into that. Not very sexy, not very sexy. Like, okay, and then not a lot of action, but it is a move you can make. I mean, you could probably easily do $1,500, $2,000 into HTT 3000s. It could be in the form of HEX, by the way, too, because it is discounted to HEX. But you could probably easily do, $1,500, $2,000 and eliminate this discount, and then realize the additional fixed return. The only caveat is you're going to be waiting for the HTT 3000 price to come up and potentially go over its current, over to the 1-to-1, or you're just going to wait till the redemption day, redeem it. So not too far of a time out there. So those are two major use cases: people doing amplification, and then other people buying cheap ones, right? So you have that. And then, as you know, you can, there are people who ratio trade. So people could be ratio trading all over the place. All right, let's go look. I think I got another panel to show. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat because we'll be ending in a little bit. But when you come to this page, you can also see some of the action that's here. I do have at times trouble with some of these loading, particularly when the network's called congested. The APIs are out of whack or something. Sometimes I don't see them minted, or see them put up here. But you can come in here and look at different activities that have taken place. You know, for instance, the mints that have been taking place. I think this was the day I did the 7,000 stream. We did a ton of minting that day because people were kind of like getting used to it, and we saw that come up. But we've seen more action. You can tell just visually looking at this, a lot more minting action over the last few months than we had in the past. But clearly coming up, you can pick a specific HTT. The 7,000 has really been the driver. You know, people going out as long as possible to get exposure. I know that. But you can look at each of these and see what's up and what people have been focusing on. You know, and then as liquidity shifts between the different pools, there'll be opportunities, and probably some of the lower pools might see minting take place on the 4,000s and the 5,000s based on that. Because what could happen is when people decide, hey, we got this new pool and it's paying 500%, you know, for the first hours or whatever, it might be like, I'm going to pull, you know, some of my liquidity from HTT 7,000 and I'm going to move it to 8,000, right? Or maybe they were in the 3,000s and they're going to drop out of the 3,000, just move all their liquidity over. That could happen too. Bit of alpha on the 3,000s is, I would be very careful about removing liquidity for 3,000s if you have it. It might be the only capital you have available to you, and then perhaps you should do something with it, right? You get to decide. It's DeFi. But if you're in the farms and you're farming 3,000s and they're no longer incentivized in October, you're not going to earn any more actuator from that. However, if other people decide, hey, I'm moving my liquidity and I'm not going to hold on to my HTT 3000s, I don't know if they're going to do this or not, but let's say they did. Let's say one of the significant LPers reduces the LP, you know, by pulling their LP, and then they trade it. What happens? What happens when somebody sells something? Price go down, right? Where do those tokens go when the price go down? They go into the pool, the LP pool. And so there's like these asymmetric, maybe they're asymmetric, but these opportunities to stay in, for instance, in the HTT 3000 pool. And you might get a whole bunch of HTT 3000s cheap. And unless somebody comes and buys them back, they're going to be cheap and they're going to be in that pool. And then then before redemption day, you might pull them, you know, so somebody doesn't buy them cheap from you. But you can lock in you probably be able to lock in a pretty good return if that's what happens, because we've seen it's been discounted for quite a while, for months now. So it could be somebody's already effectively moving out, you know, of the 3,000s. The liquidity did come down. I did see that, and on their site here, it's minted yield curve time liquidity. Let's do 3,000. Oops. There's the 3,000. Okay, so in terms of HEX, it hasn't come down. You know, it looks like it's still pretty solid. In dollar value, it did, but that's just dollar value. You see the big thick yellow line, so that hasn't happened yet. But you can see others where people have been adjusting liquidity based on what they see. Like even the 7,000 per day or so came down. 6,000's kind of curled over a little bit. Yeah, some of these tiny ones don't show up as well, but 5,000's up. So I guess right at the moment we can say they've pretty much been going up day over day. This is measuring pool liquidity in HEX, how much HEX is in there. You know, but anyways, there's a little bit of alpha for somebody who's providing the LP. Maybe there would be some other things you could do. That's a possibility. Alrighty, let's check here. We got requests out here. Susie Q. There's a song about Susie Q out there. J.A. Soul. Cheers to all the hexes. Yeah. 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 All right. Another cool thing. There's actually a lot of buttons and opportunities and information on this actuator protocol pages. But we were looking at, you can look at the farms and see what they're paying. They have some charts down here. You can look at that. This is the actuator distribution schedule, right? Notice it ends October 9th, 2027. Boom, done. All of the actuator would be reduced. In fact, the emissions are being reduced quite a bit. It's the team unlock. These are the farm emissions. And so we go, all right, so it's starting in October, 150 million more actuator will be released. And over a year's period, 150 million. Previously, it was 250 million, right? So this last year, until October, they do it on a linear basis, but it was 250 million. So we're getting down to the short strokes, guys. There's not a lot left to be emitted in terms of the actuator. And so, yeah, that's for those who sell, that's good for them. For those who want to buy, they have a lion's share of the actuator. It's pretty good, right? $1 million is a strong position of actuator. It's like $300, but that's quite a bit. The actuator token itself, go look at the farms here, the vaults. The actuator token itself, if you have a 1 billion supply, 100 million is a Poseidon, and a whale is 10 million, and a shark is just 1 million. So 1 million for a shark position. Somebody's asking earlier about it, right? Actuator, why would you want it? But even have a small exposure to that. If that was the only thing you did, you can drop it into the the HTT 7000 vault or the 8000 vault. It just accrues more HTTs. That's all. It's just a real painless way to accrue HTTs. And when the 8000 vault is out there, people can add and have added to the 8000 vault. And so as they're being minted, and again, I expect there to be a lot of minting, we'll see that go up. Right? And so people will do that. I mean, they put 120 million actuator into, which is a Poseidon position, into the 7000. So I'm kind of guessing the number is going to look something like 120 million. Now, will it be new actuator that hasn't been vaulted before? Maybe. Probably some of it will be. And then I would expect some of these to lighten up and move. Right. So I would expect certainly after, as we're approaching day 3000, I would expect this 25 million to move. Probably move over to the 8000s or something, or get spread or something. People do that. I would expect that. All right, here's a little cool one. So a lot of people ask about, well, how do these stakes get ended? Well, the person who owns the stake still owns it, even if it is delegated. And they can come reverse the delegation at any time, pay back their HTTs. But the community can, for any that are delegated, when they're due, and they're ready to be ended, you can come to this panel here. It's under Earn HEX Community End Stake, and you can actually end the stakes, right? You say, wait a minute, those are my stakes, so other people can't end them. They can't emergency end stake them, except if it was one that has to be emergency end staked as per the protocol. But what you can do is come in here and end these. We get within the two week period after the end date for the stake. And this will be a way that some people may earn, because you get a little bit of a payout reward for being the person who actually ends these. It's also a quick way to figure out, well, just how popular has each one been. So in the day 3000, which I selected from the list here, you can see we've got 1,217 T-shares. There's 32 million HEX was put up as collateral for that. I can change the date and do 3690. It's a much smaller number. 77 T-shares for about 2 million HEX. You go to the 4,000, it's 1157 T-shares, 1,157 T-shares for 20 million HEX is in there. The 5,000, so on and so forth. So it's a quick, easy way to see what's been put in. When we get to 8,000, we'll be able to do this. I'm not sure if it'll actually show us. Yeah, well, oh, here it is. Okay, so we see it. So the 8,000 day, the 8,000 HTTs, there are already 412 T-shares and 5.6 million HEX have been collateralized already. Just indicating that it's going to be picking up. I expect that to be picked up pretty good. So just a way to look at stakes really quickly and what's up with that. And that's for the 8,000. So this is already paid. Let's see how much it's paid out already. Do 5.6 million. So when people mint, there's a 1% fee. Now, in the very beginning, when you first do an HTT and you're the first minter, there is no fee. You get all of it. So there is a first mover advantage if you're the person who actually creates the first HTT and nobody's in the vaults. If there's no vault, the minter gets it all. But then when people are in the vault, they get it. So this is already paid 1% fee on 5.6 million. So it's already paid about $56, 56,987 HEX-ish. So 56,987 HTT 8,000s, and that's roughly around $56 or so, and it's about a 75% value. If we take 56 and do that, 0.75, because these numbers feel low for sure, but it's already paid about $40, $45 worth of HTTs out to people who are in the vaults at the current prices, right? And again, you say, well, wait a minute, that's at this price. Well, let's multiply that by the current price to where we're going at all-time highs, right? And it's quite a bit more. It's quite a bit more, right, than that, 200-300x. And so instead of that at 200x, that $42 in the future is worth 8,400. So a nice little chunk of change as prices adjust. Maybe let's just show you what's there, and then of course if there was an end stake or reward, it'd be there. These are not ready to be ended; they're way out into the future. All right. There's probably enough mind-numbing information. What do you think? Again, I do suggest people go take a look at the frequently asked questions. Go look at the documentation. I think one of the big things that I just haven't seen people do is kind of crazy, again, is people have existing HSIs. They have them. I haven't seen a lot of people coming in from the Hedron ecosystem. Maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's a community pride thing. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of people do it, but you can come tap the HSIs and earn off of that if you choose to. And for those who really like, hey, listen, I'm done. I just got stuck with this HSI. You just turn it into cash. Probably be able to mint 3,000s or 4,000s, maybe even 5,000s or 6,000s. And if we look at the price, right? Let's see, 6,000 is 0.68% of a HEX. 5,000, 0.73. or 73%, 68%, 73%. 4,000s or 83% of a hex is what you get on the swap. So people could actually be able to do that and come in. Pretty cool. Fungible as long as there's LP. All right. Oh, look, it's Johnny. It's Johnny. Oh, look. All right, my friends. I think this is it. I think we're done. I think that's all she wrote. And we'll go ahead and wrap up. I don't see any other questions out there. Lots of fun and games in Hex land. Making Hex fun again. Making Hex fun again. So yeah, as a wrap up, if you haven't taken a look at the protocol, go read the FAQ. I mean, I know it can be a little dense, but you know what we're really saying here is this: people are using, people are using this ecosystem, right? You don't have to agree that they should use it. Doesn't have to. Get Johnny on the screen here. You don't have to agree that they're using it and why they're doing it, right? But what's happening is, Actuator itself is immutable code, right? The HSI contract is immutable code. The HEX contract is immutable code, right? So it's all out there and can be used. Other users like yourselves decide that they want to do something and they go do it, including putting up LP, and they do. And when they put up that LP, it surfaces opportunities because LP is not like just a set price. Right? Things vary because of other people are doing different things. And so then you end up with things like, wow, and HTT 3000 is paying 11% fixed APR. If you were to swap into it, even more of an ROI. 17% return calculated, 17.84, right? So somebody might be like, oh, this is a good deal. I'm going to go do that, right? And then have other people like, oh, the 4,000s, they're a little high priced for where they are on the curve. Maybe I'm going to sell. I'm going to go mint some and sell them and go do something with that. That would be an example. Best total return, 103% ROI, higher than doing a Quattro Cinco for 7777. Why is that? Because the price is depressed. Right, price is a little low for the Quattro sevens. And so you have that, and then there are probably a ton of other plays people could describe, right, and strategies. And then when you get all the way into it, right, that opportunity for amplification and being able to amplify the stakes. That's the one that really that I'm super interested in because it locks up more hex, and while being able to earn. So I don't, you can participate and lock up more hex without, just everything being a gift, donation. Because you're locking it up, you're getting exposure to the T-shares, and they're out there, and you can do what you want with them, right? So I don't know. And like I said this earlier, I don't know if Johnny's going back to the beginning or he's still here looking at this right now. But I mean, at $5, listen, guys, at $5, use that number again. I really don't care whether or not I made 49% or 50%. I really don't, right? Because it makes no difference at that point. And how the math kind of works like this, right? So if we do, people like fun moon math, right? So we'll do just one moon mathy thing. Right, so we go back and look at our numbers here again, right? So if HEX goes to $5, let's say $5, right? So current price, I'm gonna say HEX is going to go up to $5. 0.001056 is the current price. Multiply that. That's a 4,734x, give or take, right? Right, 4,700. Let's just use 4,700. It's easy. We say it's a 4,700X. Well, what happens to the HTT 7,000 if it goes up? If HEX goes up like that? Oh, it's going to go up roughly around the same, right? So 4,700 for an HTT 7,000. Currently, in HTT 7,000 is 0.000620. Right, so that's a $2.90 HTT for a $5 HEX, because just assume this account today. So am I happy that I'm earning HTTs? Yep. It opens up the optionality quite a bit, right? Because now my T-shares, if I have a T-share that's out there at 7,000, right, and we've gotten to some sort of incredibly high price like this, and I have a T-share that's tied up into a stake that's a 7,000, and it's, let's just say it's going to earn what we're getting today, like one, we'll just say 1.6. So I have one T-share, and now that one T-share is paying me $4.6 a day in the form of an HTT 7,000, which is fungible and I can actually do something with now, right? That's one T-share. Right, and the closer we get to day 7,000, the higher that value would be, because we get closer to $5. So that's how some people do think about this. We're thinking about what ifs, the moon math, where are things going to go, and how great it'll be. Just make HEX fun again. And Susie Q, let's celebrate. You're welcome, Manitak. And Tam, no, you're the best. You're the best. All right, with that, guys, I'm going to end the stream. Hopefully I won't have the same technical difficulties ending as starting. Sometimes that happens. If you have questions about the amplification processes and whatnot, let me know. I am doing some unique streams, not necessarily all of them are listed. Just kind of going through and explaining what's what, with how this whole ecosystem could work. I have a vision, this is $1 billion, market where people are trading. I mean, God, just with the numbers and the speed, I don't know who everybody is here that's watching, and I know most people that watch this, English speaking, US based, followed by UK and Canada, etc. But, I've met people that literally live on a few bucks a day, right? Different parts of the world, good or bad. But the one thing they probably have is a cell phone. Almost everybody has a cell phone, right? Which means they have access to this stuff. And so whether, it doesn't really matter number wise what we're talking about, but there are places where I can very easily see this being a income generator for people at the levels that they need it to be. Okay, sure, I live on the East Coast, the US, super expensive, but so I'm not getting away with $3 a day, right? There's no way. My taxes are more than that on $3, right? But but there are places and opportunities for people all over the world to be participating in a market like this. And I just wonder, if it catches on, and that's at low dollars, and then we get to big dollars. Wow, we start looking at this being a $300, $300 million set of liquidity. What happens then? All right, guys. With that, let's go ahead and end it. I know I keep saying that. I've been talking a little bit longer than expected. Hour and 20 minutes, and I guess we are out. We are out.
Yo, T, urgent HEX buy signal. Charts flaming hot.
Golden ratio, huh? That's how legends stack T-shares.
Get them while they're crispy, folks. This window won't stay open long.
Stake smart. Win big. Time rewards those who act.
Stay crispy, Hexicans.
You gotta move it, move it! Feel the rhythm of the blockchain.